This is what happens when you keep pushing. This is what happens when the progressive movement fails to realize that people are rejecting what they think is progress. You know, there's an old saying, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Deacons at Woke United Methodist, they are finding that out the hard way, which isn't all that surprising since, the vast majority of deacons, they have absolutely no experience dealing with women. Hell, most of the deacons, they are too busy trying to become women. Over the past 3, maybe 4 years, women have been pushed and pushed and pushed. Women have essentially been told your rights do not matter. Women have been told that we are not worried about your comfort. We are not worried about your aspirations, your dreams. Countless women have been told that compliance is not requested. Compliance is mandatory. Countless women have been told that your tolerance is demanded. You're expected to sacrifice your comfort. You're expected to sacrifice your dreams in order to acquiesce to the demands of one person. Women like Riley Gaines, they have lost opportunities. Women like Riley Gaines have been relegated to changing in the closet because someone with a supersized cucumber chose to identify as a woman and they wanted to change with other women. For the longest time, it felt like women were standing alone. We would see someone like Riley Gaines speak out, but that was just one voice, a single voice. Conservative media, people like myself here on YouTube, we would speak out, we would bring awareness to the situation, but there's really only so much we can do. If this problem is going to be resolved, it is going to take women coming together and standing with each other. It's going to take women coming together united and refusing to put up with the bullshit. After 3 or 4 years of dealing with it, after 3 or 4 years of being tolerant, young women, they have finally united and said, enough is enough. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the second channel in the description below. If you haven't subscribed to the second channel, please head on over there and subscribe. By now, I know everyone in this audience is familiar with Blaire Fleming. The artist formerly known as Braden is the star volleyball player for San Jose State and the Fighting Flemings. Now, to their credit, San Jose State, they have been absolutely dominant this season. If this happened 20 years ago, hell, if this happened 5 years ago, it would have been called cheating. The NCAA, they would have suspended the season. The NCAA would have taken away scholarships, possibly banned San Jose State from postseason play. Because an investigation, it would have determined that San Jose State had a clear advantage over opposing teams. They have a player on the roster who was born with the ability to grow a beard. But in the year of our Lord 2024, the inclusion of Blaire Fleming, it is not only celebrated, the NCAA, they claim the inclusion of Blaire Fleming as part of the rules, which is fine. That's perfectly fine. If that's how the NCAA wants to handle this, if that's how San Jose State chooses to handle it, they are well within their rights to do so. Just like opposing teams are well within their rights to refuse to compete against Blaire Fleming. At this rate, San Jose State, they are running out of opponents. Their season might be ending prematurely. Next weekend, October 26th, the women's volleyball team from San Jose State, they were scheduled to travel to Nevada for a game. With Nevada being the proud alma mater of Colin Kaepernick, you would think there would be no problem with this game being canceled, right? Fortunately, the young women from Nevada, they are the complete opposite of Colin Kaepernick, meaning they actually have sense. Over the weekend, the young women on the Nevada volleyball team, they announced that they were forfeiting their game against the Fighting Flemings. Now, in their statement, The young women announced that they were standing in solidarity with their colleagues from Southern Utah, Boise State, the University of Wyoming, and Utah State, all of which canceled their games against the Fighting Flemings because they refused to compete with a biological male. Now, just out of curiosity, I went and checked San Jose State's record this season in games that were canceled. For the first time in the history of college sports, a team has went undefeated in games that never happened. I'm sure you noticed earlier that I said the young women on the volleyball team at Nevada, they canceled their game against the Fighting Flemings. That was said intentionally. I didn't say that the University of Nevada canceled the game because they didn't. Matter of fact, the university released a statement 2 weeks ago claiming that the game would be played as scheduled. There was just one problem, one tiny problem with that statement. The University of Nevada, they didn't check with the players before releasing that statement to the public. They failed to ask the players, the young women most affected by Blaire Fleming. They failed to ask the players if they were comfortable competing against a biological male. What does that tell you? Pure speculation on my part. I haven't read this anywhere and no one has told me this, but it seems to me that the University of Nevada, they were trying to intimidate these girls into competing against Blaire Fleming. Nevada became the 5th team in the last month or so to cancel their game against Blaire Fleming and San Jose State. 5 teams in the span of 4 or 5 weeks have refused to compete against San Jose State. Now, this is not the Pee-wee level. This isn't junior high or high school. This is big-time college volleyball, if such a thing exists. But you get the point. We're talking about the Mountain West Conference. We're not talking about this happening at some Division III program. We're talking about 5 games being canceled against one team, one particular opponent, in a conference that is somewhat high profile. And yet, for some reason, over a month into the story, we still haven't seen or heard anything from the mainstream media. I wonder why. What makes this even more confusing is the fact that one of the young women from San Jose State, they have been the victim of online bullying. As you guys know, the mainstream media, they love a good victim story. For the past 3 months, the media has relentlessly reported on the hatred that unknown players in the WNBA are dealing with on social media. And with the vast majority of those stories, they're just making shit up. There is no evidence provided. With Brooke Slusser from San Jose State, the threats against her and her teammates, they were so credible, they had to increase the police presence at their games. But for some reason, the mainstream media still can't find enough interest to cover the story. I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that it doesn't fit the media's narrative. The media, they can't defend Brooke Slusser. No. She is a traditionalist. Brooke Slusser believes that only biological women should be allowed to compete in women's sports. Ew, that is so 2019. Credit should be given to Outkick for continuing to cover this story. Fox News, they have touched on it a little bit. There's been an article, maybe 2 in the New York Post, but if it wasn't for Outkick, no one would know about this story. But most of the credit should be given to these young women. To my knowledge, this is the first time that women have come together and said, enough. They are no longer waiting on the adults. They are no longer waiting on the NCAA or the universities to do the right thing. For the first time, women are demanding for their voices to be acknowledged and respected, at least on this particular issue. Look, I know that we joke around a lot about this. I know I make light of it because this really should be a non-issue. I mean, seriously, what the hell are we doing here? Have we really spent the last 3 or 4 years wasting time debating whether or not bearded birthing persons should be allowed to compete in women's sports? When I was growing up, this was not a problem. For people in my generation, millennials, this was never an issue. I know we joke about it. I know I'm guilty of making light of it, but let me make one thing perfectly clear. If you're a woman and you vote for Democrats or Republicans who support transgender involvement in sports, just know that when you are casting that vote, you are voting for your own demise. I'm sure a lot of these young women at the collegiate level, they probably weren't old enough to vote in past elections, but just know going forward, if you are voting for political candidates who support transgender involvement in sports, you are voting for your own demise. This is bigger than sports. This is an attack on the rights of women. And make no mistake about it, if you're a woman, this is your fight. I'll still be here. The NFL, the NBA, they're not going anywhere. Mainstream media damn sure ain't going anywhere. I will still have plenty to talk about. You won't. There's only so much Outkick can do. There's only so much content creators like myself can do. I mean, we can bring awareness. I can alert people to what's going on, but women have got to be the ones who are willing to take a stand. If you're a woman, I hope you are supporting these young women in the Mountain West Conference because there's a lot of people who don't. Don't be naive enough to think that it's only or it could only happen in sports. Sure, it's only happening in sports now, but what happens if this moves to the job market? What happens if a company bases hiring decisions on diversity, equity, and inclusion? They only have a certain number of jobs set aside for women, but most of those roles are being held for men identifying as women. There's a reason it's called, or used to be called, the progressive movement. Keyword, progress. The progress never stops because if it does, the movement is completely useless. Give me your thoughts on this. Another team cancels their game against San Jose State. Young women in the Mountain West Conference, they are uniting and refusing to play against Blaire Fleming. Why hasn't the mainstream media picked up this story? Give me your reason. Sound off in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share the video. Appreciate your support. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com. I'll see you guys tomorrow.